Hello and welcome to Smart Impressions. I'm Rachel, and we are unlocking business relationships one connection at a time. Today's show is exciting because if you've been in the space of PR, that's public relations for those that haven't heard the acronym, but we're talking about the spotlight of PR and the magic that it brings to your brand, your business, and building brands globally is no other than the managing director of Buzzy Communications, Tehzeeb Ahmed. Thanks so much for joining me.
For having me, Rachel. I'm super excited about this.
Awesome to have you here. It's so great to have you here.
Excited to be here. I mean, for me, this is great because, I get to provide some advice, talk to a friend who I haven't seen in ages, and so it doesn't feel like we're doing anything formally, which is the best time to set up with for me.
Yes. I agree. Well, just to preface that, we've met each other a while ago. I mean, not only a while ago, I'm going to say over a decade ago, because I married a good friend of yours that grew up here. So I got to meet you and have seen you over and over again in all these places that I keep on going. And there's no doubt there's synchronicity where people show up at the same place in the same time. And you're just it's just a matter of time.
100%. I think that's the beauty of Dubai as well, because every day Dubai invents itself and there's so many cool, exciting things happening. And I think your value sets kind of drive you to the same kind of events. And we're all seekers, right? The beauty of us is you can spot the seekers, the ones that are really looking to kind of have new experiences, meet new people, do fun things. And there's so many people going to Dubai. So, this calendar year has some really interesting events and exciting things that are packed in it already. I'm sure it's the same for you.
You're second generation here. When did you move? Were you born here?
I was born in Abu Dhabi.
Okay. So this is your hood. This is your playing field. And you've just seen this massive shift of not only bringing in all these international global brands, but for some reason now there's this shift. Do you feel it? A shift of spirituality and the focus of consciousness that's coming into this space.
It's funny you say that because I go for a walk on the beach every morning, and sometimes as you're walking, you can hear conversations that are happening around you, people also on their walks with friends. And you can see that there's so many people that are okay with being vulnerable. They're seeking, again, they're looking for opportunities in wellness. They're looking to be at the peak of their health. They're looking for longevity solutions. And we never had that. Growing up, that wasn't something that was common here. Okay, you had a couple of gyms and studios and stuff, but now there's some kind of a wellness offering. And I don't mean sports facilities. I mean wellness initiatives, mental health, mental well-being, things that help you with your vagus nerve everywhere sprinkled around the UAE. Not to mention events that kind of center themselves around that.
Which is you're definitely a big part of, and you are definitely a catalyst of bringing these people together. And I want to dive right into it because I really respect the expertise that you have in this market. You've been here, you've seen it, and the people around that space, around PR and what's happening. So what do you think are some of those big shifts that you've seen happening within public relations and publishing?
I think what's happening is that you can see that messaging is actually becoming more authentic. I don't know if you've noticed, but before it used to be who shouts the loudest and who can come out there and be oh, we're the loudest, brand, and we're doing this. And this is what, and it used to be very self-centered. However, what I've started to notice is a lot of messaging is starting to really tap into the person who's reading on the other side. And when I say reading, I mean reading. And I think that we're starting to build emotional connection, emotional quotient more. So you'll see a lot of at least I'm seeing that a lot of the messaging that you're seeing now is really reflective of everything that's the collective consciousness that people are feeling, so brands are starting to tap into that. And I think that it's really smart. And I'm gonna put an example out there with everything happening in the world right now. You'll notice that a lot of luxury brands who booked thousands of events have been mindful enough to cancel them because they're you know what, we realize that there's people suffering, and that's not something that we want to be associated with right now, And I think that a lot of kind of authenticity in their values, your values are kind of coming to the forefront, and brands are doing that more and more. There's this need for brands to be clean, to care about the environment, to care about what's happening, to be conscious, to be community builders, to hold space for people, bringing them together. And that is suddenly fallen upon brands to do that, and they're taking that into their PR strategy too.
Wow. Well, it's a beautiful shift. I mean, from my own perspective, I feel like we're connected right now because of our mutual values and our, our values and what we bring to this planet, which is really elevating people on some level, right? And doing that in a service mentality. So I'm here to serve, and I know you are too. And so I want to hear, you've been working with some of the biggest brands in this region, from events on down, and PR has definitely changed from the fact people are paying a retainer or paying for a award in some cases now. So publications are changing. What do you think? How do brands stay ahead of the game and really look to where they should be versus all the noise that's being created around this?
I'm going to go back to one of the things that I always tell people. It's all about your story. A compelling story is gold. If you're authentically storytelling, you're never going to be that brand that think about the stories you remember. They're the ones that have come from the heart. They're the ones when brands have come out. I'll give you the best example. So, Patagonia, the clothing brand,
Totally.
If you ever look at their communication, it's been centered around this value, and the value has come across in all of their communication for the last 20 years, right? And that value is, we're about buying one quality thing because we care about the environment. We give 1% of our proceeds to look after the environment to various environmental charities. And we're telling you, buy one quality thing. You don't need to have thousands of things. And they have appealed to communities of people that believe the same. Suddenly people are like, you know what? I trust this brand. I have an association with them because I understand that they know that they care about the environment, they care about clutter, they care about saving the world, and I identify with that, and I'm going to become part of this community. So I think that brands that are authentically telling their stories, and they're sticking to the synergy where their authentic stories are being translated in every single touch point and every single activity that they do, that comes across, and it goes a very long way. So it no longer is about being the boldest and the biggest and self-centered messaging that's about oh, by the way, we did this and we did that. It's about putting yourself in the shoes of the person on the other end, your customer, and being like, what would make this person's heart feel compelled to connect with my narrative right now? And I think that is massive thing. It's a massive shift that I've seen. I mean, you've probably seen this, with the fitness challenge and all of this stuff happening in Dubai. You'll see these massive sports brands, and they're holding wellness talks, and they're inviting people to come and meditate on the beach. And they're talking to you about, if you have, here, we're giving you the space to be able to come and have conversations, work out with us. But community building is another one that fits in with that, Brands are moving to good old grassroots activities, bringing people together in small circles and creating community.
That's interesting, that shift of going back to that, that field marketing kind of strategy and getting with the people, because the digital space has taken over. There's no doubt it's moving really fast. And I can understand that maybe even brands listening, and I invite you to ask some questions. There's definitely an opportunity to get your questions about PR answered here on the show. So I invite you on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Insta. Come on, I want to hear what you got to say, because I know people are buzzing with questions, and that's probably where you got your name, Buzzy B, because there's no doubt, it's part of that, human reaction to what's happening with all this moving parts. And so in a place where social media has really become to dominate, and content has become consuming to the point where it's overwhelming, right? How do brands kind of stay above the noise or prioritize? Do I go to a publisher? Do I do PR? Do I do just my own content? How are you instructing or orchestrating brands to really follow the right strategy to move forward?
Well, I always ask brands to work backwards. So when we work with brands, for example, we do an audit. We want to understand what their voice is, right? Are you coming across as a voice of authority because you want to teach people something? You want to have a clear, distinctive voice because you have an opinion on things that are happening in the world, or things that are happening and how your brand is going to change the world in some way or the other. The other voice that you can have is a voice where you're co-creating, you're a community voice, right? Like you're building community. So for us, the most important step actually is to kind of do an audit with brands to understand a couple of things. One is their value sets, how are your values defining what you're doing, and what is the real reason you're doing it? Why do you need PR? Why do you need to put yourself out there? Because there's a lot of people, like I've met countless people that come to us and they've only come to us because someone has said to them, oh, you need to do PR. But when you ask them the question of why you're doing PR, they can't answer the question. And some of them, I mean, ironically, there's a lot of people that actually don't know the difference between PR and social media.
Yeah.
They come to me and they'll be like, oh, I don't know what I need, but I just need to put myself out there. I need some ads. And you're like, that's not PR, but we can help you build a strong narrative. And I think that once you have a strong narrative, you can then translate that into your digital, marketing. You can then take that into your grassroots activities. You can then take that into the way you communicate and put yourself out there when you're on a stage, accepting an award, or you're on a panel, and you can do that in your storytelling when you're being feature pitched. When you're pitching features and key publications within your industry. But I think it all starts with understanding values. It starts with kind of identifying what it is that they want to be perceived as. Do they want to be that, brotherly figure, the grandma? Do they want to be voice of authority? They want to be friendly and like come across as, hey, I'm your buddy, and I just want you to know that as a brand. Once you've established that, I think the next step is compelling storytelling. Again, really identifying your target market. Who is the person you're talking to? What do you know about them? What do they like to do? What drives them? What are their values? How do your values align with their values? When you put yourself in the shoes of the person on the other end, I think that really shapes your reality for you. And it helps you really assess, my people hang out on the beach and they walk every morning. So perhaps there's some kind of narrative I could do to drive their attention about like community building and stuff that happens on the beach. Or perhaps the people that I'm talking to are people that are really passionate about like the environment. What can we do as a brand? What kind of messaging can we put out about that? So I think it's very important to really know your customer as well.
Yeah, no doubt. The first thing you got to know, because if you don't know them, you're not going to do any sales. I'll tell you that much.
You'll be surprised because there's a lot of brands that it's like this self-service PR. Which comes across as almost like, oh, you know what? Our job to be a PR person is to tell you we just opened 56 stores and we won 7 awards and like for that. But like, how does that relate to the customer? Like, how does that relate to the person that's reading the article, who is your potential customer on the other end? They're not confused by that in any way. So I think you've got to really connect with that person in order to put your story out there.
I love that, because I feel like that's like one of those like red flags for anyone listening. If you have thought you need to do press so that you can tell people about your next store opening or your next product launch, like that's not why you do PR. So, find an expert that can actually help guide you of what was the value to your customer, like you're saying. So really it becomes a strategic, evolving kind of storyline with a story, no doubt, that's going to give value, right?
Actually, being a voice of authority can take you so far, because when you start to put yourself out there, and I'm a firm believer that you don't have to hire a very expensive, fancy retainer, big agency, because for a lot of smaller startups and people that are just putting their feet into building a brand, there's ways to do it. When you become a voice of authority, what tends to happen is a domino effect. You start to get on LinkedIn, you start to put articles on LinkedIn, you start to pitch features to relevant media. And then before you know it, you're being invited to panels, industry-led panels, to be that voice of authority, because you've established yourself, you've stuck to your guns, you've stuck to your authentic voice, you've stuck to your value sets, and that's kind of driven the right people to come and seek you out for speaking opportunities, for feature stories. I mean, I have that with clients now. There's people that we don't work with anymore, but we still get invitations to be like, hey, by the way, X client, do you still work with them? Because we have a panel and we'd love to have them on. And awesome. That's come from, many months of like really crafting their narrative.
No doubt there's a lot of work to be done. You need experts that can help advise you. I know some of the people listening may be entrepreneurs and doing everything under the sun with a long list of things they got to get done. So, finding the right people. Tez, I love that you're here to share with me. This is a short little nugget of information and value, and you've shared so much. So I'm so gracious, and I have so much gratitude for you just taking the time to share with my community today. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that.
Awesome. Well, I just want to reiterate, because I know I didn't get a chance to ask you your 3 tips, but you shared them anyway. It's basically, when you're doing your PR strategy, you need to understand your value. You got to figure out, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be known as? And you got to story tell to your target market. Those were your 3 top tips. I just want to make sure that's the one I got from you. You want to add anything else?
I'm going to add, I think you got them, but I think your values and being authentic, I think authenticity takes you very, very far. And I think that now we're realizing that more and more, right? Because people are, they're choosing to be more vulnerable, more authentic with themselves. And I think, you always remember the ones that pull at your heartstrings. You don't remember fancy stories and the big ones. You remember the ones that tingle in your heart. And I think that comes from authenticity.
Yeah. So stay authentic. I say connect with the people that are authentic. There's plenty of fake people trying to be somebody else, and be yourself, because if you're not, who else are you going to be? So
exactly.
I can't thank you again so much for joining us today at Smart Impressions. We're helping people make better impressions, because it only takes 7 seconds for people to judge you. So do it effectively, be authentic, and get in touch with Tez if you need some more ideas, because she has some great ones and really helping brands. Now, really, before we stop, you got an event that you're collaborating with and bringing together some amazing people. I want to make sure everyone knows about it to stay in the loop. What's happening next year?
So I have my very first labor of love project, which is mine, and it's actually it gives me an opportunity to use my communication skills. But it's a longevity festival, so we're organizing Dubai's first vendor-focused longevity festival on the 18th and 19th, with a very specific curated list of vendors that are coming out. And the idea is, we know that people are seeking to be the best versions of themselves, and they have a lot of questions. We want them to be able to come, experience, talk to the right people, find the right things that kind of work in their lives, because there aren't a lot of opportunities. Everything that we seek right now is on the internet. We've got to Google it and look for it, but you can have connections and personal conversations with people, professionals in the industry, and talk to them and get their expertise, advice on what works for you. Would that be great?
Awesome. I love it. I love it. You're bringing together the right community to help people live longer and be healthy in doing so, and answer questions and connect. And I can't drive you enough. Get out there to that event. So follow Tez so you can get more information. It's coming soon. She'll be releasing that information. So thanks again for joining us, everyone. I'll see you next week. And thanks again, Tez. So nice. Have a great day. Mwah.